Hi, it's Joel here from Coaches Rising, and this dialogue is part of our pre-summit series for the Coaches Rising Summit. You can find out more about that, and we've got an amazing lineup of transformational coaches taking part by heading to www.coachesrisingsummit.com. So in this dialogue, I'm speaking with James Flaherty, and he's the founder of New Ventures West. And in this dialogue, James talks about how, as coaches, we can settle into ourselves and awaken the wisdom of our heart, which in turn catalyzes the awakening of our clients' hearts and brings a powerful intelligence into the coaching conversation. Okay, so it's really great to be speaking to you today, Jamie. How's things with you?
Yeah, really good. I've been teaching all weekend, and it was really good. And I'm just in a lovely space.
Nice, nice. Well, I hope we can bring some of that into our conversation today. Um, so yeah, we're doing this pre-summit series. You're going to be one of the faculty on the upcoming Coaches Rising Summit, and I'm super excited about that. And one of the things we've been doing is asking all the presenters, all the faculty, a couple of questions, and then sharing that with everybody. So I'm going to do the same thing with you today and see where that takes us. One, I think, a question I think is a really rich one to ask people is: is there a shift, a big shift that you've made in your life that really made a difference to you being a successful coach? I don't know if you can think of a time when you made some kind of transition that really changed everything for you.
Yeah, there were a couple. It's hard to isolate one because it's been a process of kind of continual evolution. But one of them was actually the very first. I went on a weekend course like 1998, and up until that point, I had just, I had friends who were starting their own businesses and becoming, contractors and all these things. And I had just thought, oh, I guess that's them and I'm me. I have to have a job and that sort of thing. And I went on this course and I had this insight that, oh, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you put your mind to. And it was, I guess the nature of the insight was about take responsibility for yourself. You are responsible for the results that you're getting in your life. And that doesn't mean you can certainly have a go at doing anything you put your mind to. Doesn't mean it's going to work out the way you want it to or think it's going to, but it'll take you somewhere. So that kind of started my journey. And I was lucky in a way because I was really passionate and enthusiastic about studying and practicing what I was learning. So I started working with clients right away, started coaching anyone who would stand still for me, which was, I think, quite annoying for a lot of people at first. I've gotta send a vote of thanks and gratitude and apology to those people who were early recipients of my effort. But then another big shift, and this made a profound difference to me. So I actually got to the point, Joel, where I had been, by kind of 2008, I'd built a successful practice. I had one of the leading NLP product businesses and was running training courses and coaching people and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, you know what? I'm not quite there yet. What I need to do is go and have mini retirements around the world. Go for 3 months ski holiday here, go for 3 months there, that sort of thing. Once I'm doing that, I'll be really successful. And so I went for my first mini retirement. It was a 3 month ski holiday. And after 6 weeks, I was miserable and felt off track and off purpose. And I couldn't understand it because according to the rules of the kind of the personal development domain as I saw it, or the kind of the success domain that I was working with, I should be happy, I should be fulfilled, everything should be, like the tagline of my company at the time was do what you love. And I was like, if you're doing what you love and all of that stuff, then everything will go great. And business was good, but I wasn't actually happy. And it was because I'd been looking outside myself for that which can only come from within. Now I knew, I'd been a spiritual explorer, and I'd worked with values, and someone says what they want, you go, why is that important? Why is that important? And why is that important? It gets down to peace and all that sort of stuff. So I knew that, and I'd experienced that in my own life. But there was a way in which it was a kind of, well, I know that intellectually, but if I only get this many more subscribers, or this much more time off, or this much more money, or this much, then I'll have achieved what I need to achieve in order to feel happy and fulfilled and comfortable in my own skin and on track and successful and significant and all that stuff. And it didn't work. And so I was kind of at a loss. And so I hired a coach. And in my very first coaching session, my coach said, so make a list of your top 10 goals. And I listed them out. And they were bigger, even better versions of the things that hadn't worked before. And he said, well, let's put a line through each one of those that's based on the idea that achieving that's going to give you a certain feeling. And so then all those goals had a line through them, because I was working from a fundamentally false premise, which is that external circumstance can create internal experience. And that was a huge insight for me. I suddenly realized that everything, it was like a bomb went off, and I was like, it's like everything you've been looking for outside of you can only be found within you. And that had a huge impact on me personally. And that instantly changed my coaching. But then not long after that, and that was when I started exploring the principles behind clarity, so end of 2008, within a few months I had another insight. And the second insight was, I suddenly saw that the fact that you can see or hear or feel or perceive or sense means that you're connected to that source of well-being, of clarity, of insight, of resilience, of joy, of peace, of love. I suddenly knew it like you know your own name. I saw it insightfully. I had an insight. I realized that that's the truth. And when I realized it, I didn't just realize it, that it was true for me. I realized that it's true for everybody. I realized that it's true for my clients. And that instantly changed the game on the level of impact that I could have with my clients. Because you can understand, Joel, if you're sitting down with someone and you absolutely know that the only thing that's stopping them from achieving what matters to them and solving the problems that matter to them and living a life that they love, if you know that the only thing getting in the way of that is that there are places where they're confused about where that power comes from, that really does something for you as a coach. So I'd say, if I was to summarize it, the biggest, the insight or the kind of shift that's had the biggest impact on my power as a coach, or my impact or my value as a coach and as a trainer, would be, I am now way more convinced about what my clients have going for them, even if I've only just met them. And I don't mean in a kind of, oh, you can do it, I believe in you. It's not like that. It's more like if someone came to you and they'd accidentally cut themselves and they weren't sure if it would ever heal. And it's like, well, no, that's you got that handled already. That's built in. The body's ability to heal is a built-in capacity. Well, in the same way, what I see is that my client's ability to experience the kind of well-being and joy and success that matters to them is built in. We're built for reality. We're optimized to create results. We're designed for insight and clarity and well-being. It's part of the design. So that made a huge difference to me.
Oh, rich answer. And I want to ask you more about how we can begin to open to that kind of shift you're talking about. But I'm just curious to ask you first, how did you then start kind of going about in your life and creating the things you wanted and working with your clients, helping them create the things they want? If it sounds like such a fundamental paradigm shift, and yet people, you're still presumably going out there making things happen or creating. So what was the
Yeah.
difference, or what? Yeah.
Well, I'd say, if anything, seeing that shift, that seeing the truth of how it works, has had it's made it so I can create results on an even bigger level and help my clients do the same. So, for instance, when I was running my NLP training company, people were always saying to me, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book." But it never felt like quite the right thing or the right time, or like that. It didn't feel right. Once I saw this, it's like, oh, obviously I'll write a book. It's like just totally made sense. So my way of thinking about it is, anywhere where we do brilliantly in life, where we do really, really well, and it can be anything you choose to name. Like, someone might be struggling with growing their coaching practice, but they're a really good driver, or they're a really good cook, or they may, have a question mark over dating, but they're an amazing parent, or they may find it a bit tricky to do selling, but when it comes to uh, interviewing people, they're just a natural at it. Well, in every single case, what I find is that the people who do something brilliantly and effortlessly and uh, just naturally, they're not thinking about it much. They've got very little on their mind, and it's so interesting. I I, I was with a group the other day, and I said, "Hands up, who's afraid of public speaking?" So a whole bunch of people put up their hands, and we were talking about it, and it seemed to them like, when they thought about getting on stage, they had all these questions going through their mind. What if I forget what to say? What are the audience gonna think of me? What if my hair looks dumb? Whatever they might have going on in their mind. And so their assumption was that someone who's good at public speaking, basically every time those questions come up, they've got good answers, and they're kind of like ninjas batting those questions out of the way, and so it's like, the person who's uncomfortable in that situation, they've got such a busy mind. They think that the person who's good at it has an even busier mind that's able to keep all that stuff out of the way. You talk to anyone who's a confident public speaker, you ask them, what's in your mind when you're on stage? They all say, not much, I'm paying attention to how are the audience responding. Maybe it'll occur to me, where do I want to take this, or that sort of thing. But they don't have a lot on their mind, because their focus is on connecting with their audience and sharing what's in front of them. But it looks to the person who's lacking in confidence in that domain like that person's got a lot on their mind. So it looks to me like, for any of us, and this is what I see with all my clients, and a lot of my clients are people who are already very successful but want to take things to a new level. The areas where they struggle, there are two things they've always got in common. Number one, they're preoccupied. So they've been thinking about it a lot. And the more they think about it, the less progress they seem to make. Okay? And number two, they're underestimating what they've got going for them. And they're underestimating what they've got going for them in the very area where they're preoccupied. And so when I say that, people say, well, how do you stop them being preoccupied and reconnect them with that inner resourcefulness? I say, that's a great question, but it's not the right question. The right question is, why are they getting preoccupied in the first place? Why is someone who's so capable and so free-minded in one area of their life, why do they get preoccupied in another area of life? And you could, you know, every single one of us could make a list of the places in life or in work or whatever where we're able to operate with a free and clear mind. And then we make another list of the places where we get preoccupied and bound up. And we kind of go to everyone else. And some of the things where you're free and clear, I'm getting bound up or Bob's getting bound up. And some of the places where me and Bob are free and clear, you're getting bound up. So the places where we get preoccupied are the places where we're out of touch with reality. So you remember I said we're built for reality. We've evolved over literally millions of years to survive, to thrive, and to excel in this domain that we call reality. This is the planet we're built for, you know. Every single one of us, and every single one of us comes from an exceedingly long generation of people who successfully managed to reach breeding age, meet a partner, have a kid, create the conditions for that kid to grow up to breeding age hundreds of thousands of times in a row. If that hadn't happened hundreds of thousands of times in a row, we wouldn't be here having this conversation. Mm-hmm. So we're built for reality. And where we're in touch with reality, we already do great. Everywhere you and me are in touch with reality, we do great. Everywhere where we get out of touch with reality, we struggle. Simple as that. Mm. So your question was, given that realization that all those feelings come from within, how do I create results in my own life and help my clients to do the same? It was very simple. When you understand where your experience is coming from, it gives you great freedom to do whatever you're inspired to do. Mm. Because you're not up against an illusion. We know as coaches that the problem most of our clients have is they're up against an illusion. They're underestimating themselves. They're making mountains out of molehills. They're imagining problems where they don't exist. So we know that that's the case. Was true for all of us. The places where we struggle are the places where we're up against an illusion. And one of the flavors of that illusion is the idea that I'll be happy or successful or joyful or peaceful or feel secure once I achieve X, Y, and Z. And that's just not true. If that was true, then wealthy people and celebrities would be the happiest, most peaceful and secure on the planet. Mm. And they're definitely not. Mm. Yeah. They're definitely not. So when we're more closely in touch with reality, we can do the things that make sense to us. So can I give you an example of this?
Yeah, please do. Yeah, of course.
So I ran like a taster workshop, just a short workshop to give people an experience of the principles behind clarity. And one of the guys who came on it was a consultant, the business consulting. And I followed up with him a week later. I said, how you been since the workshop? He said, it's weird. I said, tell me more. He said, well, until now, I've always stuck up images of things above my desk that were to motivate me to do the next thing. Like the next thing I wanted to get was a Range Rover, and I've used various things to kind of act as my motivation. He said, and all of a sudden I sat down at my desk after the workshop and I looked at this Range Rover and it didn't make sense to me anymore. And I started thinking, hang on a second, I could ride my bike to work. And then I'm getting some exercise, and I'm not harming the environment. Now, I didn't say in my workshop, be a hippie. It was just, that's what occurred to him. So he saw that his attempts to motivate himself using a particular object, that was made up. Now, getting the stuff that's made up, that's illusory, out of the way allows you to get more closely in touch with what really matters to you. In fact, at the workshop at the weekend, I shared a quote from Lynn Twist. I'm going to see if I can find it. Lynn Twist was chief fundraiser for the Hunger Project for like I think for like 20 years, for a long time anyway. So this is an amazing person who raises huge amounts of money, has a massive impact in the world, has managed to feed, you know, many, many thousands of people. So someone who's really making a difference in a big way. She said, when you let go of trying to get more of what you don't really need, it frees up oceans of energy to make a difference with what you have. And this is the difference that seeing these principles has made to me. It's cleared the decks of all the nonsense that I was trying to run after and all the nonsense I was trying to avoid. And when I got all that stuff out of the way, it gives you clarity to do what makes sense to you, which may be an even bigger project than what you were originally trying to set out to do, or it may be something more simple, or it may be something completely different. But it's going to be a version of it that's a good fit for you, for who you are, and for what makes sense to you. So that's how it's made a difference to me. And so that's the approach I take with my clients.
Well, I love it. And I think it'd be cool to invite you to speak about the three principles. I know you've referred to them a couple of times, just to name what they are. One thing that comes to mind, I read your book, Clarity, and I really recommend that to people. It's a very cool book. And I started to see what you just named before everywhere, that sense of, I call it now, like it's like a scarcity mindset. I don't know if I got a scarcity kind of feeling. Maybe I got that from your book, but it's that sense of like there's something not here, and I need to achieve it. And when I get that thing, then I'll feel okay. And it creates this kind of tension, and just allowing that to relax. And suddenly, then there's a kind of space for something to emerge. And I think this is that clarity you're talking about. This innate kind of knowing. So clarity emerges about what's the next step to take, and it feels like a fundamentally different paradigm.
It really is, and I'll talk about it a bit if you like. When I talk about the principles behind clarity, what I'm talking about is our innate capacity for clarity, for love and connection, for peace of mind and well-being, for a sense of security. And it's there within everybody. It's there within every human being. And it's how our experience of life is being created moment to moment. Now, the principles themselves were first articulated by a guy called Sid Banks back in the 1970s. And it's a way of talking about the human experience that's really, it's pointing in the same direction as all the spiritual traditions. So what it's pointing at is the things people have been pointing at since the beginning of time, whether it's the Sufis or whether it's Plato with his cave, or whether it's the mystic traditions at the center of each of the religious traditions. So it's pointing at the fact that we've got the world we experience out here, the stuff you can see and hear and feel and smell and taste. And it's very practical to do things like take care of your body and, not step out in front of trucks and that sort of thing. It's very practical. But there's also, neurologists have known since the 1800s that even though we can see the world around us, that our experience of that world is being generated from within. And so a really simple example of this that I like to share with people is a teddy bear or a security blanket that parents give to a child when the child's going through a transitional period. So they give the kid a teddy bear, and the child holds the teddy bear. When the child holds the teddy bear, they get feelings of peace and security and comfort and well-being. And we know that none of that's coming from the teddy bear. I mean, the teddy bear is full of stuffing. It can't be putting feelings in the child. 100% of those feelings are coming from the psyche of the child. It's 100% inside out. It's being created from within the child. But it appears to the child like the teddy bear's got a lot to do with it. It seems to the child like some, if not all, of those feelings are coming from their beloved teddy bear. That's a trick of the mind. And it's a really practical trick of the mind for getting a child to go to sleep at night. But it's still a trick of the mind. There's no truth to it. There's no truth. The truth is the child is feeling the principle of thought taking form in their experience in the moment. And then they're attributing that to the teddy bear. Now, we know that it's not coming from the teddy bear. We know it's all coming from the child. But then our story changes as soon as we look at those adult teddy bears like a partner or a job or money or future success or our childhood or what I'm like as a person or my physical body or my personality. It can absolutely seem to us, or what that guy said to me, it can absolutely seem to us like our feelings, like our experience is coming from out there in space or time or other people or objects or things. Or even in our personality. It can absolutely seem like that, but there's no truth in that. The fact is, we're always living in the feeling of the principle of thought taking form in the moment. We're living in the experience of the principle of thought taking form in the moment. And when I say the principle of thought, that's the word thought is just a metaphor that's pointing to our power to generate a perceptual experience and relate to it as though it's an actual reality. And I know this sounds kind of deep, but it's incredibly practical because the fact is, Joel, every single one of us, including me, gets tricked by this trick of the mind on a daily basis. Like, what's a recent example? Well, no, have we got time for a quick story?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So my daughters live in a different city to me with their mom. So I was due to go and take them out for dinner and a movie one night. And I booked my car in to get fixed during the day. And so I was in a meeting with my business partner, and then I went to collect my car at 5:30 at the end of the day, and the car wasn't done. Still, so the guy at the desk, he goes, just be 5 minutes. No problem. 5 minutes, mate. They're just doing some final checks on it. So I was like, okay. But immediately I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have cut it so fine. I shouldn't have left it late. But 5 minutes, okay. So 5 minutes comes and goes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then I look through the window into the garage where they're working on the car. And my car is up on one of those car elevators, and these guys are underneath it with a blowtorch and a hammer. And I'm like, they're not running final checks. So then I get so bothered because, like, oh God, I'm going to be late for picking up my daughters. We're going to be late for dinner. We're going to be late for the movie. Why do I always do this? Everyone's going to be mad at me. I haven't left myself enough time. Why don't I schedule that? Blah, 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 blah. So I'm getting so bothered at this point. I'm pacing up and down in the waiting room when suddenly it occurs to me, where do you believe your feelings are coming from? And I'm like, it's like, did you think they're coming from the car and from the time and from your daughters and from what you're like? And for a minute there, I really had. Well, the moment I saw that, I had an insight that I wasn't feeling all that stuff. I was feeling my own thinking taking form in the moment. I was feeling thought in the moment. And the moment I saw that, I fell into the present. And remember what I said, we're built for reality. As soon as I fell out of that illusion and into reality, I knew exactly what to do. I just took out my phone, called my ex-wife. I said, I'm running 20 or 30 minutes late. Make some dinner for the girls and we'll still be on time for the movie. Simple, no problem. See, the answer was right there when I wasn't generating bizarre, groundless fantasies. And I'm not saying that I'm not often scheduling too much or that sort of thing. Those things do happen. But my feelings, my felt experience was not coming from that in the moment. My felt experience was coming from thought. Well, here's the thing, Joel. As we go through life, the trick of the mind that has it genuinely seem as though our experience is coming from out there to us, rather than how it really happens, which is from the inside out. That trick of the mind is so compelling that we inevitably get tricked by it. And the places where we most get tricked by it are those places where we're preoccupied, and those places where we're underestimating ourselves. The places where we're preoccupied are the places where we're out of touch with reality, where we're not seeing the power of thought that's creating our experience. But the moment you see it for yourself, it brings you back to reality. And when you're back in reality, you discover that you have what you need to deliver the goods. It's so interesting, this is what a great example of this is the field of sports. I mention it in my new book, actually. So Usain Bolt, at least at this point in time, is the fastest man on earth, fastest runner in the world. And before races, all his competitors are running through their pre-race routines. They're imagining themselves winning the victory medal, imagining standing on the podium. They're talking to themselves. They're visualizing. They're running through it. Usain Bolt, he's hanging out with the crowd. He's high-fiving people. He's talking to people. He's connecting. He's having a good time. And so he was interviewed, and they said, how come you're not preparing for the race? How come you're not doing your pre-race routine? How come you're not how come you're joking around and connecting with people? He said, it's very simple. He said, I find that if I think too much before a race, I don't run very well.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is, it's well known in the field of sports that a clear mind is a good thing. But almost every sports coach out there, if you say, how do I get a clear mind? They'll say, well, think about these things. It's like, well, how are you going to get a clear mind by having things to think about? It just doesn't pass the common sense test.
Yeah.
So the only way a person can ever have a clear mind is in the moments that they're benefiting from the mind's innate self-clearing capacity. And we all have that. Mm-hmm. We all have that. And clarity is your mind's natural state. It's the factory settings. It's what it's built for. So this is another of those back to front questions. The question isn't, how can I clear my mind? The question is, what's putting stuff on your mind in the first place? And it looks to me like the thing that puts stuff on people's minds is a fundamental misunderstanding about where our experience is coming from. The moment we believe our experience is coming from somewhere other than thought in the moment, our heads fill up. And the moment we wake up to the fact that we're living in the feeling of thought and nothing else, we fall back into the moment. We fall back into presence and connection and clarity and wisdom and peace and performance and all that stuff. And, Usain Bolt gets this intuitively, as do many athletes and many performers. Mm-hmm. And, you check your own experience and you'll find that you have your own examples too. I often ask people, I've asked this thousands of times, when do you get your best ideas? And the answers I get are always the same. When I'm walking, when I'm running, when I'm at the gym, when I'm driving to work, when I'm in the shower, when I'm in the bath, just before I fall asleep, when I first wake up in the morning. Inevitably, people report that they get their best ideas when they're not thinking about it. Well, the whole notion of clarity and why this has had such a profound impact on the work I do with clients is that we're just prioritizing that thing. The reason people get their best ideas when they're not thinking about it is because the mind has an innate self-clearing capacity. We have an innate capacity for clarity, for well-being, for presence, for performance, for authenticity, for love and connection. All we need to do is stop putting stuff on our mind in the first place, and we open up to that.
Beautiful. Well, I can I can feel that space open up inside of me as you talk about it and articulate it, and it does feel very nourishing and like a sense of well-being. And I'm aware of like I've been trying to get these keep these interviews to 30 minutes, and I haven't had the chance to ask you the second question yet, which I really want to ask. So,
Go for it.
but it's like I wonder if we could get a maybe like in one sentence, if you could tell me what's the, and you've probably been talking about this as well. So that's the cool thing I noticed when I ask these questions, is that they kind of merge. But what's one thing you would tell a coach, like one piece of wisdom that you would tell them that would help them become a more successful coach?
Well, I'm going to give two answers there, and there's going to be a big answer and a small answer. The big answer is get a deeper understanding of how your mind already works. Explore these principles, explore the principles behind clarity, because it's how your mind already works, and it's how your client's mind already works. And as you get a deeper understanding of that, it's going to make a difference to you. It's going to help you out in your own life, and it's going to help you make a bigger difference to your clients. It'll help you with your practice. It'll help you with everything. So that's my kind of big answer, but that's more kind of a, set that trajectory. And that's not going to be for everyone. Some people will resonate with that. Some people won't. But my second answer, my short answer, is something everyone can employ, which is listen. When I first started exploring the principles behind clarity, I was working with a coach once, and he said, you could do with improving the quality of your listening. And I was like, oh, really? Tell me more about that. Because he didn't know this, but I was a ninja listener. I'd been doing NLP for 10 years. I could unpack people's language structures in front of my eyes and dive into the presuppositions and all that. I could listen to someone for 30 seconds, and then I could do a real-time playback with all their gestures and eye movements and that sort of thing. I was a ninja listener. So I said, yeah, tell me about that. And he said, it seems to me like when you're listening, you got a lot going on in your head. Well, that was true. I was busy keeping track of all that stuff. And he said, you might like to try listening in the way you used to listen before you'd learned to listen. The way you used to listen when you were a kid. And it's so interesting, Joel. I've been listening it almost sounds like not paying attention in the same way, not paying attention to the same things. When I listen to a client now, I'm listening with as little on my mind as possible. I'm not trying to think of good questions or where are we going next or any of that. I'm just thinking with as little mind on my mind as possible. And as a result, I can feel a connection to my client. I can feel them, and this will sound strange, but I can almost feel the ebb and flow in their presence with me. And that's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming for that feeling of connection and presence, because I know that when we're in that space, they're going to have insights that occur to them, and I'm going to have insights that occur to me, and I'm going to be given the right question to ask, or the right story to tell, or the right time to shut up and not say anything. And if I'd have known that listening could open a door to so much connection and so much wisdom and so much insight and so much possibility, I would have started a lot sooner, And so that's, anyone can do this. You already have this skill built in. You're a born listener. And the feeling you're in will let you know what's going on in your listening. Like a lot of us, especially when we've been trained as coaches, we've been given lots of good questions to ask and that sort of thing. And there can sometimes be this feeling of, I know what I want to ask next. And as soon as we're up in our thinking and thinking ahead and that sort of thing, we're not present with the person. And yet what you find again and again and again is when you're really present with another human being and that connection emerges, it's not just that you're connected with this person, you're connected with who you really are. You're connected with the intelligence of life. You're connected with that wellspring of wisdom and clarity and possibility that arises from within each of us. You connect with that. That's more powerful than any question I could ever teach you or any structure you could ever learn or anything like that. That intelligence and power that arises from within really looks to me like the WD-40 of transformational coaching.
Beautiful. Beautiful invitation to everybody listening.
Mm-hmm. You're a real good listener, Joel.
Well, yeah, as you were sharing about like what are those things that you feel where you feel like there is flow and you just love doing it, and I mean I love being in these spaces with people and exploring these questions that we're exploring today. I can feel that like tangible kind of space open up where who knows what's going to be said next, but it's something powerful is emerging. So. But I want to take, maybe this is a good place to bring our conversation to a close. I feel like we could actually spend the whole day exploring this topic, and maybe you could just share like in one or two sentences about you're going to be running a session in the upcoming summit. What are you going to be teaching during the summit?
Yeah, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the stuff I've been touching on in this call, actually.
Yeah.
So we're going to be, we talked about connection. We're going to be starting with what I call the clarity coaching model, which is all about what are the conditions for having a really deep transformational impact on your client. So that starts with connection. I've found that the more in connection you are with your client and with yourself and with life, the more impact you can have. So we'll be looking at connection. We'll be looking at clarity of thought, where you get those high performance state of minds. We'll be looking at your clarity of understanding, because your embodied understanding is the best thing you've got going for you. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at what I call your innovation engine, which is how you come up with just the right question or just the right metaphor or, just the right story to tell or whatever. We're going to be going into that. And we'll also be looking at the link between your impact, the impact you can have with a client, and your ability to be compensated for that. Because a lot of times I'll talk to coaches and they'll say, I've got a marketing problem or a selling problem or whatever. But it almost always boils down to an impact problem, or what I call a grounding problem, like just a person's comfort in their own skin. So we're going to be talking about that too for growing your practice and looking at that side of things.
Well, I can't wait. That's what I love about doing this work. I get to kind of soak up all this wisdom. So that sounds awesome. Can't wait for that.
Oh, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, well, so I just want to express my gratitude for the way you shared yourself today, and just kind of the presence you've helped me connect to. Like I really feel connected more to this space you're talking about, and just want to thank you. So.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. And I'll be seeing you soon in the summit.
I look forward to it.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Jamie.
Bye.
Hi, it's Joel here again, and I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. If you're excited about what we've been talking about and you want to learn directly from Jamie and from many other powerful master coaches, then you can in our upcoming online Coaches Rising Summit. Other faculty members include Michael Neal, Otto Sharma, Katie Hendricks, James Flaherty, Michaela Baum, Rich Litvin, Marita Frijan, Rosamund Zander, and many more. And each of them are going to teach you the tools and approaches that they use to coach others into deep change. The sessions are all live and interactive, and it begins on October the 19th. So you can head to www.coachesrisingsummit.com to find out more, and also you can access the other free pre-summit audios there too.